Many years ago, in the quiet but dramatic village of Ijesha, where goats walked around like landlords, there lived a man called Pajegede Olatunji, a grandfather whose face was permanently arranged like someone smelling trouble, and a voice that sounded like a broken megaphone mixed with thunder. He was the type of man who believed discipline was the only language children should understand, and he carried his long cane the way soldiers carried guns, always ready for battle and always prepared to reset anyone's destiny if they dared to misbehave. The villagers feared him respectfully, and even the chickens in his compound walked carefully as if trying not to offend him, because everybody knew Pajegede did not smile with nonsense. Many years earlier, when Pajegede was raising his children, he ruled his home like a military barracks and believed strongly that emotions were a waste of time because softness produced wayward children. So he trained his sons with iron hands, iron voice, and iron everything. If a child sneezed without permission, Pajegede would punish him. If someone forgot to greet loudly enough, Pajegede would make him kneel on raw garri till tears came out. Even though people gossiped behind his back that he was too strict, Pajegede insisted that discipline makes men, and anyone who argued would receive a lecture that lasted longer than Sunday service. His first son, Samuel, now known as Sammy, grew up with that hardness, and as soon as he turned 18, he escaped to the city like someone running away from a lion. He also promised himself that his own children would never live under military rule. Sammy built a new life far away, married a beautiful woman named Lillian, and together they had 3 children. Tiara, a dramatic 17-year-old fashion-loving TikTok queen who believed she was born to be a superstar. Tunde, a 15-year-old gamer whose full-time career was eating snacks and pressing phone, and Tenny, the 11-year-old last-born who looked innocent but was actually the chief strategist for many household operations and could convince anybody to do anything even without shouting. Those children were pure Gen Z champions who spoke English faster than radio presenters and believed rules were only suggestions. Any instruction could be negotiated like a business deal. So, when Sammy, their father, announced that they would be traveling to the village for Christmas holiday, the children reacted as if someone told them they were being deported to another planet. Tiara screamed and fell on the chair dramatically, holding her chest like a Nollywood actress. Village? Why? What have we done? Sunday blinked rapidly. Do they have Wi-Fi there? Tenny asked seriously, will there be charging ports or do we have to use candles? Sammy shushed them and explained that family was important and they needed to visit Pajegede because old people needed love. But the children exchanged looks of horror like prisoners discussing their escape plan. Their mother rubbed their backs and advised them to behave well. But the children already knew deep down that they were going to suffer. The decision was stamped and they set out on the journey, which took long hours and several stops to buy roadside plantain chips, gala and water. By the time they entered Ijesha village, the sun was shining as if it wanted to roast human beings. As they drove in, villagers stood watching them from their compound gates, observing and smiling as if they were expecting entertainment. Well, they were, because Pajegede had mentioned that his grandchildren were coming and everybody in the village were excited to witness how old military training would collide with Gen Z energy. As the car reached the gates, Pajegede was already waiting, standing tall with a stick in one hand and his hand behind his back like a retired general inspecting soldiers. He did not smile or wave. He just stared like a CCTV camera scanning for trouble. When the children came out of the car, Tiara started to stretch her legs and adjust her hair. But Pajegede's voice boomed immediately like thunder interrupting the calm sky. Stop right there. Nobody enters this compound without greeting properly. The children froze like statues. Sammy bowed quickly and greeted loudly. Good afternoon, sir. We have arrived. Pajagada nodded slowly and then turned to the children who stood confused. He shouted, again, greet with respect. Tiara stammered, Good afternoon, Grandpa, sir. Tunde whispered, good afternoon, sir. Tenny curtsied dramatically because she was scared of the cane. Pajagade eyed them from head to toe and then cleared his throat loudly. Before you enter my house, hear my rules. This is not city nonsense. In this compound, children behave like children, not like foreign ambassadors. There will be no phones after 6 p.m. No sleeping beyond 4:30 a.m. No noise, no social media, no useless makeup, no trousers pulling off your waist, no earphones, no TikTok dance in front of strangers, no talking back, and no questioning my authority. Do you understand me? The children stared at him as if electricity shocked them. Tiara whispered to Tunde, is this a prison or holiday? Tunde whispered back, both. Tenny swallowed saliva loudly. Sammy tried to defend them. Daddy, please. Times have changed. Children are different now. Pajagada turned slowly like an angry lion and said sternly, times may have changed, but foolishness remains the same. These children must learn discipline before it is too late. When I trained you, did you die? Sammy looked down quietly because it was true. He did not die, but he almost lost his mind. Pajagada clapped his hands sharply. Good. Take your bags inside. Tomorrow morning, the training begins. The children dragged their luggage like prisoners being relocated. As they entered, Tiara looked back at the compound gate dramatically and whispered under her breath, if I survive this holiday, I deserve a national award. Tunde nodded, me too. And Tenny muttered silently, God, please help us. The next morning, before the sun even woke up and before the first cock in Ijesha village remembered to crow, Pajagade Olatunji marched across the compound like a military commander preparing soldiers for battle. He held his long cowbell in one hand, his cane in the other, and without warning, he shook the bell so loudly that even ancestors in the grave would turn in their sleep. The sound exploded through the quiet compound like a church crusade speaker. Paka, 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 paka. Inside the room, Tiara jumped up from the bed screaming, thinking the world was ending. Tunde rolled off his mattress onto the floor and hit his head shouting, Yay! Who died? Who is chasing us? Little Tenny, who was dreaming about eating ice cream, woke up crying, earthquake, somebody help! Pajagade continued ringing the bell with pride. Wake up, morning devotion. Children who love God do not sleep like goats. Tiara staggered out of bed with her hair standing in different directions like wires from a broken radio. She looked at the time on the wall clock and gasped. Granny, it is 4:30 a.m. Even angels are still sleeping. Pajagada frowned so hard that his eyebrows looked like they were about to fight each other. Silence! In this house, we wake up at 4:30. Pray for 1 hour, work for 2 hours, then eat at 8 a.m. Any child who cannot do that should go back to the city and join the lazy generation. Tunde rubbed his eyes slowly and whispered to Tiara, lazy generation? Does he know school starts at 8 a.m. in the city? Tiara whispered back, he thinks life is war. Everything is training to him. Pajagada heard them and raised his cane. From today, you children will learn discipline. I trained your father like this and he turned out successful. Tunde muttered under his breath. Successful? Daddy escaped and never came back until now. Tiara pinched him to shut up. They dragged their feet to the sitting room where Pajagade ordered them onto their knees for devotion. And as he prayed, his voice shook the windows like an earthquake. Oh Lord, these children must not grow stubborn or useless. Deliver them from the spirit of rudeness, phones, and nonsense. Tiara and Tunde looked at each other like prisoners waiting for bail, while Tenny was already snoring with her eyes open, pretending to pray. After devotion, instead of resting like normal humans, Pajagada clapped loudly and announced, "Walk time!" He handed Tiara a broom taller than her and pointed outside. "Sweep the entire compound. Not one leaf must remain. If I see one, you will start again." Tiara opened her mouth wide like someone trying to catch rain. "But Grandpa, the compound is like a football field and leaves are still falling from the tree." Pajagada raised an eyebrow sharply, then swept faster than the leaves fall. Tiara almost fainted. Next, he gave Tunde a rusty cutlass and ordered, "Go and cut the grass behind the house. The grass must be low like a baby's haircut." Tunde looked at the grass that looked like a mini forest and said weakly, "Grandpa, this grass has been growing since Noah built the ark. This is not grass, this is a plantation." But Pajagada shouted, "No complaints. A lazy man is worse than a thief." For sweet little Tenny, he placed 3 basins of cassava in front of her and said, "Peel everything. If your hands pain you, sing worship song. It gives strength." Tenny stared at the cassava mountain as if she was seeing Mount Kilimanjaro. She whispered sadly, "I am only 11. This is child labor." Pajagada ignored them and went inside to drink his hot bitter leaf tea like a champion. When breakfast came, the children expected bread and tea like city life, but instead, they met boiled yam without oil and water in small cups. Tiara looked at the plate and almost cried, "Grandpa, where is the egg or something?" Pajagada looked confused. "Egg? For who? What have you achieved today that you deserve egg?" The children sighed in despair, and after eating sadness disguised as yam, they sneaked back to their room to take their phones to recover emotionally. But the phones were not there. Tiara screamed so loud that birds flew away from trees. "My phone is gone! Somebody call 911!" Tunde searched under the bed, their luggage, inside pillowcase, even inside shoes, breathing like someone having asthma. Tenny started crying. "This village wants to kill me, oh!" Suddenly, Pajagade appeared behind them like a ghost from a horror movie, holding all 3 phones in his hand triumphantly. "Looking for these?" The children froze. "In this house, phones are distraction and generators of foolishness. I am confiscating them until you learn how to respect family and reality. When you act like humans, you get them back." Tiara screamed dramatically like an opera singer. "Grandpa, please! All my life is inside that phone." Tunde shouted, "My game progress is there. My destiny is there." Tenny cried, "My cartoon is there. My happiness is there." But Pajagada walked away confidently like a king who won the battle. However, that night, after dinner of watery okra soup that tasted like aloe vera, the children gathered secretly under their bed sheets with torchlights like undercover agents. Tiara whispered with fire in her eyes, "Grandpa thinks he's the only stubborn person in this family. He does not know that Gen Z blood is hot." Tunde bounced his shoulders. "We need a revenge plan. Operation Fire for Fire." Tenny clenched her fist dramatically. "We will teach him a lesson he will never forget." They joined their hands together like people swearing an oath. "We strike tomorrow morning." And just like that, the war officially began. The next morning, the Triple T gathered quietly at 4 a.m. before Grandpa's cowbell could shake their souls again. And they whispered like underground freedom fighters planning escape from slavery. Tiara, being the eldest, crossed her arms dramatically and said with authority, "Gen Z does not lose battles. Victory is our portion. Grandpa must understand that we are not his soldiers." Tunde nodded like a general approving a war plan. Yes, today he will experience the kind of stress he has never seen before. Little Tenny, although small, clenched her fist like a boxer and whispered fiercely, "We'll finish him gently." Step 1 of their plan was to destroy Grandpa's sleep the way he destroyed theirs. They sneaked into his room while he was brushing his teeth outside, and Tunde secretly changed the alarm clock settings so it would ring every 20 minutes between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. They set it to the loudest volume possible and placed it under his bed. Tiara grinned like a villain in a movie. Perfect. Let's see how he feels when sleep becomes suffering. In the evening, while Grandpa was taking his bath, they entered the kitchen and found his precious bitter leaf tea, which he guarded like a treasure chest. He told everyone it was medicine food for long life. Tiara lifted the cover carefully and whispered, "Long life is good, but today he will taste the seasoning of suffering." She poured half a packet of salt into the pot, while Tunde stirred it with wicked enthusiasm. Tenny clapped quietly. "He will explode." That night, they waited until 12 a.m. when darkness swallowed the entire village, and the only night was the moonlight shining dimly like a tired candle. Tiara played ghost sounds on her tablet. She purposely selected strange crying noises and dramatic wind sound effects. Tunde knocked on Grandpa's door gently 3 times and whispered in a scary voice, "Jagada, Jagada, we are here." Grandpa sat up on his bed immediately with his eyes wide open as if he saw a ghost holding a cutlass. He grabbed his Bible in one hand, a torchlight in the other, and shouted, "Who is that? Show yourself. If you are a spirit, I am a child of Jehovah." He opened the door aggressively but found nothing. He looked around confused and shook his head. "My enemies want to test me. They don't know who I am." He went back to bed, but then, 5 minutes later, the alarm under his pillow screamed, "Pee!" Pajagade jumped up in terror and almost hit his head on the wall. "Blood of Jesus, who put alarm under my pillow?" He turned it off and lay down again angrily. However, 20 minutes later, it rang again, then again, then again. By 4 a.m., Grandpa's eyes were wide open like a street light, and he was sweating like someone who ran a marathon. The next morning at breakfast, Grandpa looked like an expired bread. His eyes were red, his face was swollen, and his hands were shaking slightly. He forced himself to sit straight, trying to maintain dignity. But when he tasted his bitter leaf tea, his face changed immediately like a chameleon falling inside acid. He coughed violently and shouted, "Who cooked this poison?" The children pretended to look confused. Tiara asked innocently, "Grandpa, what happened? Is everything all right?" Pajagade banged the spoon on the table. "This soup has enough salt to bury a village. Are you trying to kill me?" Tunde blinked innocently. "Maybe your taste buds are tired from shouting at children." Pajagade glared at him like a lion ready to attack. But before he could reply, some villagers outside started banging at his gates, shouting and calling his name. Confused and already frustrated, he marched outside. The whole village council stood waiting, looking disappointed. The chairman held a paper and shook his head. "Pajagade, we received an anonymous complaint that you are too harsh and outdated, and your leadership is no longer needed. We must discuss removing you as a village elder." The villagers murmured loudly. Pajagade froze. His cane dropped from his hand. He blinked repeatedly like someone slapped by an invisible hand. He opened his mouth numbly and tried to force words out. Remove me? After all my years of service? After everything I sacrificed?" Tiara, Tunde and Tenny stood behind pretending to be innocent angels. Tenny whispered, "He looks like he wants to faint." Well, unfortunately, he did. Pajagade collapsed slowly like a wall falling. The villagers screamed, "Hey, somebody bring water!" Tiara grabbed Tenny's hands, trembling because the joke had clearly gone too far. Tunde was shaking. "We didn't plan for collapsing, no. We only wanted small panic." They watched as the villagers carried Grandpa inside. The children looked at each other silently, but they agreed on one thing in their mind. The war was no longer funny. The villagers carried Pajagade inside the sitting room and laid him gently on the long wooden chair. His breathing was weak and sweat poured down his forehead like someone who just wrestled with thunder. The children stood in one corner, trembling. Their hearts were beating fast like a talking drum. Tiara kept whispering, "This was not the plan, no. We just wanted to scare him small now so that he would stop disturbing us." Tunde bit his lips. "We have committed an abomination. Grandpa will kill us when he wakes up." Little Tenny hugged herself and prayed, "God, please, let him live. I don't want village people blaming us." Meanwhile, Sammy and Lillian rushed back to the village after receiving emergency calls from neighbors. Sammy barged in with panic, shouting, "What happened? Where is Daddy? Who touched him?" The neighbors all pointed silently towards the sitting room. Sammy rushed inside and knelt beside his father. Daddy, please open your eyes. It is me, Sammy. Daddy, please don't do this." Slowly, Pajegade's eyelids fluttered open. He stared at the ceiling like someone looking at memories instead of the wall. He tried to speak, but his voice came out like a toad croaking. Sammy asked again, "Daddy, what happened?" Pajegade looked at the children, standing with guilt stamped across their faces. Tears filled his eyes, which surprised everyone because they had never seen Pajegade cry, not even at funerals or in moments of pain. He swallowed hard and spoke in a weak voice. "Maybe I have failed. Maybe I am no longer needed." Tiara burst into tears. "Grandpa, please don't say that. We are sorry." Tunde wiped his face with his shirt sleeve. "We went too far. We didn't know it would hurt you this much." Sammy sighed deeply. He was confused at this point. "Daddy, I think we deserve to know. Why are you so strict? What are you afraid of? Why is everything all about discipline and shouting? We are adults now. You can talk to us." Pajegada closed his eyes and took a long trembling breath. When he opened them again, pain sat there like a heavy rock. He shook his head. "You won't understand. Many years ago, I was not like this. I was not hard and loud. I used to laugh, play, and talk gently. But something changed me." Everyone leaned forward. "Your grandmother, my mother, was sick for many years. Doctors said she needed steady care and that stress could kill her. But she worried a lot and she always wanted perfection from herself. I tried to be strong for her. I believed if I was firm and organized, if I removed chaos from the house, she would live longer. I wanted peace in the home so she wouldn't worry." He paused and wiped the tears running down his cheek. "I became strict trying to protect her. I shouted when children fought because I didn't want noise around her. I punished every mistake because I wanted everything perfect. But I did not realize I was turning into a monster in the process." Sammy looked down slowly. "Daddy, you never told us." "I know," Pajegade replied. "When she died, I blamed myself. I thought maybe if I had been strict enough or controlled enough, maybe she would have stayed longer. I carried the guilt like a heavy stone. I thought discipline was the only way to protect the family from falling apart. I did not know that discipline without understanding becomes prison." Tears rolled down Lillian's face. The children cried too. Tiara stepped closer and held his hand. "Grandpa, we are sorry. We did not know your heart was broken. We just thought you hated us." Pajegade squeezed her hand weakly. "I don't hate you. I was scared of losing family again. I wanted to protect you all the only way I knew." Tunde knelt down beside him. "We just wanted phones and freedom. We didn't know you were fighting something bigger inside." Little Penny came closer and said, "Grandpa, we will not run away. We love you. Please don't leave us." And that was how the entire compound dissolved into loud crying. Outside the window, the villagers silently stepped away, wiping their own tears. Even gossip aunties stopped gossiping for one day. The next morning, the children woke up early on their own, not because of a cowbell, but because they wanted to start afresh. They cleaned the compound without being told, fetched water and cooked breakfast. When Pajegade woke up and saw them walking peacefully, he stared in shock like someone witnessing a miracle. Tiara smiled and said, "Grandpa, sit down. Today we'll serve you." Tunde brought the chair closer and dusted it with a cloth. Tenny placed a a cup of hot tea in front of him proudly, Pajegade's eyes softened and he whispered, "Thank you, my children." And for the first time in the history of Ijesha, he apologized. "I am sorry. I should have listened. I should have loved with patience, not fear." The children also apologized. "We are sorry. We should have talked instead of plotting war." They hugged tightly, and that hug healed many years of silence. Later, Tiara and Tunde helped him create his first TikTok account named Grandpa J, and Tenny taught him how to smile for selfies. When he tried, he looked like a constipated goat, and everyone laughed until tears came out. News quickly spread around the village that Pajegede had changed, and the villagers gathered in their compound for the Christmas celebration. For the first time, Pajegede stood in front of people and spoke gently without shouting. Discipline without love destroys, and love without discipline spoils. But balance builds great children. I was wrong, but now I am learning again. The crowd clapped loudly as he declared that food be distributed to everyone. The children stood beside him proudly. Sammy whispered to his wife, "Daddy finally learned." She smiled, and the children too, they learned. At night, as fireworks exploded above the sky, Pajegede told Tiara, Tunde, and Tenny, "You did not come to learn discipline. You came to teach me love. Thank you." And under the stars, the family became whole again. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What lesson did you learn from the story? Share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye.